Hey, welcome back once again, Knicks fans. I'm here with Jersey Dre, and we are talking Knicks basketball. The New York Knicks, they've already played two preseason games so far, and we're just going to talk about what we've seen so far. For me, basically, it's pretty much, like it's the defense is definitely better than it was last year, and the offense looks a little better. It runs a little better, especially with the addition of Jalen Brunson. And so, but before we get into the details, if you're watching this video, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. And so we're going to get right into it. Jersey Dre, so do you want to start off just, what do you think about, the New York Knicks so far this preseason? What have you seen so far from them? What's your overall takeaway from these two games?
Overall take is that they're playing with more continuity. It looks like they're getting into their sets a lot faster. They're playing faster. I've been very impressed with a lot of our bench players so far. Jalen Brunson is doing everything I expected him to do. I couldn't ask for anything more. He's a point guard who can score when it's needed. When you have a stagnant offense, he's someone that could get things going. Whether it's him, he can score at will, or it's getting other teammates involved as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the same thing I noticed about Jalen Brunson as well. He's excellent with the mid range. The biggest thing I noticed that I think the biggest impact I've noticed so far is basically it's more about the style of play for the New York Knicks on offense. The first game there was a lot of ball movement, and second game there was some ball movement too. Second game there were some stickiness with the in some parts of the game, especially with I think Julius Randle kind of got away from some of the stuff he was doing the first game. But overall, I feel like they're playing a different brand of basketball where they're actually moving the ball a little more instead of basically having one person all the time, like try to go one on one to either create for himself or create for the whole team. And I think basically that's kind of like Jalen Brunson's game. When he's running the offense, he tends to come down. He's not the kind of point guard who's going to beat the hell out of the ball and basically and tries to get the assist or try to make the shot himself. He likes to move the ball, try to play within the flow of the offense, and get everyone in the right spots. That's kind of what I've noticed with him, which is really good. I really do hope it carries over. But right now for the first game, it looked really good, but it was against the Detroit Pistons. The second game, um, it was there was ball movement as well, but I just kind of felt like it wasn't as much as the first game. So we'll just have to like wait and see a little more about that. Um, what do you like? Who do you think had like, let's kind of stick a little more to the second game now. Who do you think, who were the standouts for you during the second game of the preseason, the one against the Pacers?
Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin. I must admit, Sybil, the first game, I was very disappointed in Obi. I'll be honest. He shot a couple of those UFO 3-pointers,
Yeah.
and it was good to see him rebound to the next game. Uh, and he does one thing I've noticed. He doesn't really put together a lot of string of bad games. So I wanted to see how he was going to handle that adversity from the first game, and I was very, very impressed with him again. I thought, for the limited amount of minutes, he made it work. I mean, he knows his game. I mean, of course, he leaks out in transition, but it's his game. And until a team can provide defense to stop it, keep doing it. 2 points is 2 points, and I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, I was finished. I was finished.
Yeah, it's Obi, like sometimes it's hard to see the talent is there because Obi like only likes to play in the flow of the offense. He doesn't like to break the flow of the offense. And so a lot of times I think people they're, wondering, is it because basically is it the offense and the point guards he's playing with? Or is this really Obi, right? Or is it really him? And so I think that's the reason why it's really difficult to see that the talent is there, because you don't see him just break basically the flow of the offense to go one on one and go get a bucket. And so, so that's one thing I noticed about Obi. The second thing, where it can be, I think it could be a detriment for him too, is like because I feel like, we'll have to wait to see if he can be consistent with the 3-point shot. But it seems like him being able to really kind of like produce a ton is going to be dependent on him basically making that shot, right? Because it seems like because he likes to play in the flow of the offense, he's trying to. It's almost like if you give him an open shot, he feels for. I mean, you got to take it, right? If you're open, you got to take it. And I think he is in it like, and if he's not making his open shots, I think it's going to impact his ability to do other things on the floor. And I think it's just more because of the way he likes to play. And it's actually, I think it is good for the offense overall. However, I think sometimes, like, if he's having a bad shooting night, it may kind of, I think it's going to basically reduce his production on a court production. So that's one thing I noticed about him. But yeah, I just think, it's there. I think, he, like I said, he plays within the flow of the offense. So that is really good for the whole team. And you kind of compare him to like Julius Randle. I mean, both games, Julius Randle didn't have really efficient games. And the second one, Julius Randle shot 36%. And the
Right.
second game, RJ also shot 40%, right? And so now, like, honestly, I'm wondering, like, I was hoping basically Jalen Brunson would have basically helped improve the efficiency for both players. Obviously, it's only preseason game number two. RJ had a good, efficient first game. The second game, it was 40%. And I kind of feel like um, people just kind of like, ignore the efficiency issue with RJ, or not that they ignore it, but basically they just kind of gloss it over. Oh, he's great. He's going to be an all-star. And granted, I think he's got the talent to be an all-star, and he could get there given his work ethic. It's just like it's just the efficiency. I'm just wondering, is it really going to get better this year? Is Jalen going to really, help them improve the efficiency? What did you think about both players' efficiency? These two preseason games.
Oh, I thought it was still horrible. And you're absolutely right that RJ has been getting a pass.
Mhm.
He's been getting a pass, I think, a lot due to his youth.
Yeah.
And they're, not putting a lot of expectations on him. But now you signed the extension. So now it's time to hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
So from an efficiency standpoint, I mean, it's awful. I'm looking at the numbers right now. I mean, even Julius from the 3-point line, 1 for 7.
Yeah.
That's terrible. And Julius is a player who can create his own shot. I mean, he can take a person off the dribble, but there's a time. It's again like we talked about earlier, the flow of the game. If the offense is stagnant, can you go there and get a bucket? Uh, in most cases, I believe he could, but Julius plays a style of basketball that it's not always team friendly, as I would say. And a lot of that, again, goes back to the coach, what their coach will allow, because everyone doesn't get the same leeway as an RJ or Julius gets. And I'm sure Jalen Brunson will receive the same. But the challenge, I think, if Jalen Brunson starts showing deficiencies on the defensive side, I think he may get yanked a little bit faster than most people would think.
Mhm.
And so we'll see. It's going to be really interesting. And I don't, one thing I remember last year, a lot of Knicks fans, we got excited about preseason, Kimball, and everyone was like, we were unstoppable. And then even that first 5 games, was it 5, 6 games? I think we were like 5-1.
Yeah.
Wow, had we arrived, is this it? And so I I usually like to look at that first 10 games,
Hmm.
and start kind of analyzing that first 10, and just see how we're progressing, how are we playing night in and night out. Now that especially if the roles have been defined, it'll be real interesting to see uh, that next step, that next progression. So I'm clearly, and I think the season starts next week, right? Is that correct?
A little over a week, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's on the
Okay.
19th.
Yeah, I think it's not this Wednesday, but the following. Because I think the last preseason game is that Friday? Is it this Friday?
I think I'm not sure. I think so. I have to look at the schedule, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
It might be.
Okay. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm curious to see even with these next two preseason games. Usually, the last preseason game is a lot of the guys that are going straight to the G League. They want to get a good look at them before they've gotten essentially the camp invite, and then now they're going into the G League. One of the things I'm wondering, are they going to find more playing time for Deuce McBride? And if so, where is it going to come from? Especially if we have a healthy Derrick Rose.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Honestly, I think it looks like they are going to try to get some regular minutes for Deuce McBride. Because the way from what the coach seems to be saying, he looks like he's ready to start playing Deuce McBride, giving them some regular minutes. It may not be like, it might be similar to like Obi Toppin, how Obi Toppin was like, he'll consistently get like that 8 minutes a game, really. Obi was basically guaranteed like 8 minutes every game. I mean, sometimes it will go over to like, a lot of times it'll be more like 12 minutes. Sometimes it might get into like, 18 minutes a game, but that's rarely. Obi Toppin, like his minutes per game really jumped only because of the last 10 games, because Julius was out a lot towards the end of the season, and Obi basically started those like I think it was like pretty much started the last 10 games or played a lot of minutes. That's the only reason his minute count was all the way up to like 18 or 17 minutes per game. But if you look at the median, it's probably more like around like 12 minutes a game. But yeah,
Exactly.
I think, Deuce, he will start getting some burn. I think, and the other thing with Deuce too is like it's just his confidence on the offensive end. I think he's going to be fine. It's just he just needs to get his confidence back. And you saw he did make a couple of 3-pointers last game, but Deuce is like the same kind of player. Once he keeps playing over and over again, the more he plays, the more productive he's going to be. I just want to go over like basically the stats for this game real quick. Not all the stats, but it's just basically to kind of talk about the reason why the New York Knicks really won this game. So
Okay.
if you look at it, the Knicks basically made 44 field goals, and and Pacers made 41 field goals. So that's one reason, right? You look at the
Okay.
efficiency, the Pacers were actually slightly more efficient than we were. And the reason, they were slightly more efficient than we were, we shot 44%, they shot 44.6%. And so our pace was a little higher. It seems like our pace was higher, but I think it was mostly because of the turnovers. We basically we only had 9 turnovers. The Pacers had 19. So it's
Mm,
pretty much honestly, this game was determined really pretty much by the turnovers. And also, we made basically most of our free throws. We shot 26 or 27 from the free throw line, and the Pacers only shot 19 of 26. And so I think so that's pretty much why we won the game, right? And so it kind of shows that the Pacers are not a very good team, because like this is what you see from like bad teams, right? Where their offensive stats seem okay, the rebounding stats are fine, but it seems like they still found a way to lose the ball game, and it's because they turned over the ball a lot more than they should have. And also they missed free throws. Or they didn't, they're not focused enough to make sure they make all their free throws. But the Knicks are obviously focused this year, because even last year in preseason, you weren't seeing the Knicks make like, you didn't see them make all their free throws. And so that's pretty much the reason why the Knicks did win this ball game. And so I just kind of wanted to probably should have went over that when we first started. But
No,
that's
no, no. But that's a good stat actually. Free throws. That's I always say that's like leaving food on the table. That's there's an opportunity there, and that's something that RJ Barrett really needs to work on. His free throw shooting, because he has a knack of getting to the basket, and drawing fouls. Probably, I would say the best person on the team when it comes to, um, drawing fouls outside of Derrick Rose, and so. Uh, he definitely would have to improve. If you see his improvement, I believe if RJ can get to the line more often, I think he can average at least 23 to 24 points a game. If he can shoot at least an 80% clip.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, and I think he's going to make more free throws this year. I do think he's going to do better because it seems like they're just overall. It's something it looks like the whole team was working on. Even Mitchell Robinson. Let me see. Wait, I think he was 2 of 2 from the line. But let me see. Yep, Mitch was 2 of 2. I'm sorry. Where is it? Yeah, he was 2 of 2, and that actually surprised me a little bit. But it was good to see that Mitchell Robinson. He's obviously his shot is still pretty flat, but at least he made it seems like he's more confident with it, and he's going to be making his free throws this year. So he might be close to like around 70%. And so if they can get there, I think that'd be really good, really good for the team. Uh, the other person actually uh, that was really interesting. I wanted to look at was like Emmanuel quickly. The
Okay.
first game he shot about 44% from the field. The second game he shot 41.7% from the field, which is almost 42%. And, like Emmanuel Quickly, he's definitely a very interesting player. The one thing, it's like I've always known about like he really dominates the ball a lot. He beats the hell out of the ball. And so a lot of times when he's running the second team, especially if RJ's not out there, if you notice he's either he's the one who's actually taking a shot or he's creating a shot for someone else. Or maybe once he may get a little hockey assist occasionally, but it's almost like he's involved in either in the creation of a shot every time, like he's on the floor when he's on the floor, right, when he's running that second team. And it actually kind of made me realize I think that's probably the reason why Thibodeau does not want him as a starting point guard, because I don't think that's really the kind of game Thibodeau likes. I think Thibodeau likes to make sure the ball moves, and it's really clear with Emmanuel Quickly that Emmanuel Quickly really likes. He's very ball dominant, and there are a lot of guards in the NBA that are ball dominant, but they're usually like really good guards, right? You have to be the
Right.
ones that are you have to be like kind of like a Chris Paul, right? And that's when Chris Paul was like with I think it was New Orleans.
Yeah.
It was a little more, Chris Paul now is not really like that anymore, where he's not going to be dominating the ball because he's just not the same Chris Paul he used to be. And so, although Emmanuel Quickly has been pretty effective, especially going back to last year, from like the last 30 games or so, he's been effective, even though he's been really, basically dominating the ball a lot. But it's really interesting to see. And I think I kind of see why they don't want to start him. And I think that's probably one of the reasons. He needs to have the ball in his hand to actually be effective and to actually, really affect the game. And so, uh, what did you think about the way he played the last, these first 2 preseason games?
I haven't, you know what? Looking at Emmanuel quickly, I haven't seen the improvements that he looks like the same guy from last year. I didn't see him take necessarily a step forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping that, the game will slow down for him as well. I mean, he's a microwave. This guy gets hot, but he can also be as cold as a freezer. And it's like, I guess you have to, and this is where Tibbs has to notice what's going on. Like, hey, you know what? This guy is hot. Let's ride him out. I think he does have the ability to, find the open guy outside of just Obi. Obviously, those two have a definite connection. Um, but I feel like, I mean, I'm glad to have him on my team. To be honest, I do. I mean, it's definitely a blessing. But I would like to, but I would like to see his game mature. I would like to see him, seeing what the defense is giving, and keeping them off balance. And I'm hoping that he can do that. I didn't really see that this particular 2 games, but again, it's only been 2 games, so I won't hold him, uh, too much accountable for this, just the 2 preseason games. But I want to see what happens when he's playing, top guards in the league, and what his defense looks like with the top 2 guards, and top guards, and how he reacts to that. And that's what we'll really know. We'll be able to judge, if he's improved or not.
I definitely agree with you on that. Just kind of have to look at how he plays against, more elite guards, the better guards in the league. The one thing that's good about Emmanuel quickly though, his defense is, I think his defense is there. It's really good. For most of last season, I'm trying to think, especially before Cam Reddish got to the team, Emmanuel quickly was the best perimeter defender on the New York Knicks. It's kind of crazy to see because last year
Hmm.
I was like tabulating a lot of the stats, the defensive stats myself,
Okay.
because it was just uh, so I would basically go through like, frame through every play, right? I would go through every opponent, like offensive play by the opponent, and just kind of see basically the person who scored, who did they score on, and the person who, like, if you took a shot, who was it against, right? And so, and then kind of tabulated the defensive stats that way, so I can see basically who was really stopping the man or whatever, and like what percentage opponents were really shooting against each player. And Emmanuel quickly for a lot of games, he was actually holding a lot of guards. I remember first half of the year, I want to say the first 40 games, he was holding like opponents to like 38% shooting. It was like absurd. It was like he's actually he was very good defender out there on the perimeter. And then even Tibbs was talked about it recently about how he's very underrated defensively. And, I think he is, but it's going to be interesting to see how he does play this year, especially once he start facing better guards. And towards the end of last year too, I did notice his defense did drop off towards the end of last year. And I think it was maybe because he really started feeling himself. He started playing a little better last year. And so I don't know if it was because he started playing better. And so he felt like he didn't really have to commit the same amount of effort on the defensive end. But first half of the year was good. Second half of the year was still pretty decent, but it wasn't that great. It clearly fell off second half of the year. And so, yeah. And then in terms of offense, the one thing I've seen that he has improved a little more is like it's really going to the basket. It seems like now he can actually get all the way to the rim. It was weird watching him like the first two seasons where it was like it's almost like he had difficulties, almost like he was like some kind of software that would glitch out if it tries to take two steps to the basket. It's
Right.
almost like he couldn't even do it. And so I'm kind of happy to see he's able to get all the way to the basket now, which is good. And he's using his body a little better. And I think the reason why he wasn't really doing it because when he would try to go to the basket like the first two seasons, there was when he would try to do it more often than not, he would get his shot blocked because I don't think he did a great job like using his body to ward off defenders when he went to the basket. He'll get the lane and get to the basket, but then he just didn't use his body properly, and so I think he seems like he might have worked on it. Uh, in the off season, and also everybody's been talking about the a lot of he did a lot of weightlifting this off season, so that's really helped him dramatically, which is really good. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to see that he's not uh throwing teardrops from the 3 point line,
yeah,
those
that was
floaters
pretty
up in
crazy. Yeah, you're right. That was literally all he had. He didn't want to do anything but teardrops unless he was shooting a 3-pointer, and that was just really weird to see. But yeah, I'm happy that's gotten better. The other person, I wanted to talk about was Cam Reddish.
Okay.
Um, you know, these first two games has been kind of eye opening for me for Cam Reddish. And a lot of people says like have been saying that, oh, like, he was, well, actually the reports were he was in great shape. Even Leon Rose said like Cam looked great and was in great shape when he came into camp. However, I don't think Cam Reddish really works on his offensive game that much. I don't think he's working on it and then it seems like, and you kind of hear, right, the people that are usually at the facility the whole summer with working with the coach. I don't know if Cam is one of those guys. And so I feel like my tune on Cam is starting to change a little bit.
Okay.
And it's like look, I've always said when we had our last talk, it was I did admit like, okay, maybe he's not, he's clearly, maybe he doesn't put in the work, or put in the same effort that other people put in, but he's clearly effective, especially on the defensive end. And also he's been able to get to the basket pretty much at will, but it was just like, when you kind of look at the way he gets to like his game, especially on the offensive end, it feels like way too much like a freestyle, right? It's almost like he doesn't have like a go-to move, right? Like when he's like, I would think as a professional basketball player, for every spot on the court, you should have like what you're pretty much your go-to, what you're going to do from that spot on the floor, even if it's like driving to the basket, right? And so it just sometimes his game feels like, there's nothing wrong with having like a game that's like freestyle, obviously, because it's good because it's very hard to predict what you're going to do. But just because of the way it's just his layup packages, like with the, and also the way he's been shooting it, I don't know. It just gives me the feeling like he's not, intentionally working on his offense in the off season. And it does. And if he was in a facility with Tibbs and that coaching staff, I think his offensive game would like what he works on in the off season will be a lot more intentional. I just don't really see it. Again, it doesn't mean that he's not going to get any burn because like he's still, in my opinion, the best defensive player on his team. Like, and it's just based, and he does it just on sheer talent alone. And just because he's so long, and all he's got to do, and he's got good instincts, and he just puts in like just a little bit of effort, and I mean, like, and he's good. Um, but offensively, it seems like the first two games he struggled a little bit. The last game, he only shot 1 of 7. Um, it's was it what? Yeah, it was 1 of 7. And look, it's only first two preseason games. I mean, I could be wrong, and he could just like end up like, let's say, averaging 13 points a game on like 48% shooting, and I'm just plain wrong. And I hope I am, honestly, but I'm just not very. I wasn't very happy because it's preseason too. It's not like it's preseason, and so preseason, and it's against two bad teams, and so these are the games where like um, if even if you struggle a little bit in the first game, you should be able to come back and play better this game because like you go back to the lab and like, okay, this is what I'm going to do this game to make sure I have a better game or whatever. But it just didn't see that. A lot of people feel like he was like pressing. Maybe he was a little nervous. I really hope it's just a little nervousness and he shakes it off and then has a great season. I'm just more worried about like even going forward for his career. Like, um, is he going to be able to like work on his game and become the best version of himself? Or at least like can he be 60% of what he can of his full potential? If he could be 60% of his full potential, that would be great. But can he even get there? So it's but what have you seen with him these two preseason games?
Yeah, I he makes me nervous because I feel like he has the potential. Again, he reminds me of so much of Kevin Knox, just with better defense. Both high motor, good slashers, could be great finishers. Both can shoot the 3 pointers, but I just feel like there's something missing. There's
Yeah.
something that has to burn inside him that I haven't seen it yet. Like I don't feel like he even wants to be at the game some days. I'm like, um, and I think that's one of the, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, that motor. Where's that motor? Where is it? I mean, like you said earlier, he plays off straight talent. He is extremely a talented player, but how are you going to help this team at the end of the day? Can is it going to be from a shooting efficiency? Is it going to be on the defensive end? I just don't know his role just yet. And so if I'm one of the coaches, I don't know where to play him. I mean, I just don't, because especially when you got Tibbs, he's gonna run with guys he feel like he can win with now. We know he's not going to help develop anyone, and
Mhm.
so where does his role? Where's his role on this team? And again, like you said, it's only two preseason games. But I do want to see. I'm going to be looking at him very closely these next two,
Mhm.
and hopefully he'll get more playing time. Because if I'm Tibbs, this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
None of these stats count, and it doesn't matter if you win or lose. So I want to get a really, really good look at Cam these next two games.
Yeah, I mean, here like is a shot chart for the game just to kind of get an idea, um, what he was
Okay.
doing during the game. Like, and it's like it's nothing like too crazy. It wasn't like he was taking like um, he was taking shots from like it wasn't like he was taking all 3 pointers. He basically took two threes, one mid range, and then had 4 attempts at the rim, only made one. And but the one thing about him that I always like is just he gets to the rim like with ease, which is really nice. But it's just I mean, he needs to be making these shots. It's like the mid range, he should be able to, especially given his talent, his ability. I mean, he should have a good mid range, right? Because he's very talented, could put the ball on the floor, so he
Or
should not have an issue, shooting mid range, right? And so that's just the thing with Cam. I do hope like I'm wrong, and I really hope that he improves, but you know, I
yeah, I
do
do
think,
too.
yeah, it just he does scare me
But
because
it's perception.
yeah, and I think in terms
Yeah,
of the way they're going to use him is going to be, I think it's probably going to be mostly defense, and I think, and it's probably going to be mostly with the second team. I don't know how many minutes he'll be able to get. However, he'll probably be able to help the team on a defensive end because we don't have a lot of depth at the three, at the small forward position is really just RJ Barrett, right? So that's pretty much it. So I do think he's going to get some minutes, and in terms of like with we haven't seen Grimes yet, and people talk about Grimes and versatility. Grimes should not be playing. I don't think he should be. I don't know if he can really be an effective small forward. I think probably a lot of small forwards he can guard, but there's a lot of range of small forwards in the league that are like kind of like more like Cam Reddish, that are like 6'7", 6'8", and he's not going to be able to guard those guys, and there's too many of them. And so I think Grimes is really just a two guard, and he's kind of battling it out with Fournier, and kind of going back to that, kind of if you kind of look at all three of them, I don't think I don't think either one of those two is going to be able to knock Fournier out of the starting lineup. They're just not, because we kind of went over last, like the production from last season and in terms of their overall matchups. And Fournier was the only one who basically won his matchups overall throughout the course of the season. Like Grimes lost his matchups horrendously, and was lost it really bad because I think he was outscored. His opponents made like 33 more field goals than he did, and they were also more efficient than he was. And Cam was actually a little more even, and I think it's not because of Cam's offense or his offensive production. It's just because he's just a better defender, in my opinion. He's just like however, um, yeah, I just we'll see what happens with Cam. I really do hope he plays better, and and I do think he's going to get some burn this year, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. Uh,
Yeah.
the last player I wanted to talk about uh,
Okay.
was basically Isaiah Hartenstein.
Okay. Yeah.
So the first game, he showed the range. The second game, he didn't hit any shots, but that's fine. We know, he's got decent range. For me, the one thing I noticed with Hartenstein with that second unit when they were playing him and Obi together, the team struggled rebounding the ball. You know, um, it's and that was actually the Detroit game.
Okay.
That kind of surprised me. The struggle rebounding the ball. I think the second game, Jericho Sims did play a little more, and I'm trying to remember if Jericho Sims, Obi, and Hartenstein, if they all played together. I just can't, for some reason I can't remember if they actually played together on if they're on the
I
floor
don't think
together.
so. Yeah, I don't think that happened.
So, but if it's going to be, let's say, Isaiah Hartenstein and Obi on the floor, Obi will have to be a lot more intentional in terms of rebounding. He can rebound if he wants to. He's got the athletic ability. but that
Sure.
means he would have to sacrifice like easy baskets, like cherry picking and things like that. I
Right.
think, you know,
Right.
I was listening to some other show and they were like, they should call him Obi cherry picking topping. So that was pretty funny. Uh, I'm trying
Well,
to
you know
think.
what? I mean, they're right.
Mhm.
However, until defenses can stop it, you know,
Keep getting the easy buckets.
got
I
to
agree
keep
with you.
going. Yeah, I mean that
Mhm.
would be insane to stop something, right? It's just
Yeah.
like we got a guy who can shoot 3 pointers. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, that's all he can do. Okay, that's his game. Stop his game.
Yeah.
It's like a burglar, right? If he keeps coming into your house and he's breaking in the same exact way, and you don't do
Mhm.
anything to stop him, why would he stop? Why? And so I like to use that analogy. Like you got to figure out a way to stop him. You put an extra locks on the door. You do something to
Mhm.
prevent him. And until that happens,
Mhm.
take the 2 points. But there's the other end, right? There's the sacrifice of the rebounding.
Mhm.
Clearly, he can get more rebounds. Than but even in college, his stats were 7 rebounds, 6 rebounds a game.
Mhm.
Can he get up to 9 and 10? Sure. He would have to stay underneath the basket a little bit more often. But and you bring up a good point because I like Hartenstein, and if Hartenstein struggles as well, then you're leaving. What you're saying is you're leaving the rebounding up to the guards,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a detriment to the team.
Yeah. And so now it kind of got me wondering is like, is it going to be like kind of like, is Hartenstein going to become a little more situational, right? If it seems like they struggle with rebounding, is the coach, what's the coach going to do? Is the coach going to bench Obi like from the second unit? He's not going to bench Obi in the second unit. He's going to be more likely to basically to swap out to basically replace Hartenstein with Jericho Sims. I think that's going to be what you see more likely. But yeah, it's just something I noticed the first two games, and it's interesting when you talk about Obi and like him. Basically, yeah. I mean, if he's faster than everyone, get easy baskets, and they just got to stop you. It does remind me of like the New Jersey Nets. Like there was a 2 years they went to the finals, like in the early 2000s, and that was like I think the New Jersey Nets were like one of the worst offensive teams in the league, but they were basically had one of the best defense, and they all they did was like you had to stop them from getting out on transition because that's all they did, right? They only
Right.
they would get out because they were really fast. It was Kenyon Martin, Jefferson, Kerry Kettles, and Jason Kidd, and they just wanted to get out and run all the time, and so they will basically run you off the floor if you weren't careful. And so you're right. It's like sometimes it's like uh, it happens. There's some teams like transit. They're really fast and transition is their thing, and it wins them a lot of ball games because like if you're just really fast and teams just can't keep up with you, you're going to run them off the floor a lot of times, and it's going to be very difficult. Where it kind of gets a little more difficult is in the playoffs, right? If you're
Right.
depending mostly on a transition type, offense, and then it gets to the playoffs and you don't have anyone that can get you buckets in a half court, I think that's more of an issue. But in the playoffs, but for regular season, if the Knicks can do it and they can play fast, and they can find a way to run teams off the floor, good. I think that's a good thing. And I think in that way, I think Obi Toppin is going to be you know a big plus for them. But in terms of going back to Hart and see, it's going to be interesting. Kind of have to wait and see a little more because it seems like pretty much what Hartenstein really brings is like he is a good backup. I think he's a good backup, but he brings you basically the ability to stretch the floor. But I just feel like the rebounding isn't really. I just kind of feel like when he was on the court the first game when it was him and Obi, like I was surprised how like they struggled a little bit, getting rebounds during that game a little bit. Not the whole game, but like there was a few possessions where they struggled getting the rebound. So that's going to be interesting. Kind of like a wait and see thing to see how how all that plays out. But the next game, I'm trying to see when the next time the Knicks play. I think they play. Do they play Wednesday? Is it Wednesday the Knicks play?
I think so.
Yeah, I guess they play in. Is it Indiana they play again?
Yeah, they do play Indiana. I'm definitely 100% sure on that. It's definitely Indiana. I'm looking right now, and The next game is it's on Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Yes.
Yeah. And then okay. And then basically the last game is on the 14th. We play Washington on the 14th. And then after that, I guess the season begins like 5 days later on the 19th. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, what happens. But it's an interesting team. The Knicks, we still have to wait. And there's a lot we still need to wait and see. Jalen Brunson, I definitely think their style of play is different. But Julius Randle, it seems like he's trying to break the habit, but it's a difficult habit to break because the second game, I felt like the ball did stick a little bit with him in some possessions. The first game, it kind of did a little bit too, but it was early in the game and he quickly went away from it and started playing more on the flow of the game. The second game was a little more, I think, was a little more difficult for the players. And so for both RJ and Julius, efficiency is going to be a huge thing. Is Julius Randle really going to be able to help them become more efficient? And so we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, is Jalen Brunson going to help both of them become more efficient? And I think it's just more a wait and see approach. What do you think about, I mean, it's hard to basically to grade Tibbs at this moment to see, to talk about how he's doing. But is there anything you notice about Tibbs and the way he's been coaching overall?
Yeah, I thought his rotation was much better.
Mm.
Just rotating players in and out. And I think if we see this Tibbs, who's rotating players, in this type of fashion, I think we can have a much more successful year. But I have a feeling, once, especially if we don't get off to a quick start,
Mhm.
Tibbs are going to go back to his playing his veterans heavy, heavy, heavy minutes. And so I do like the rotation, and I look at the rotation of the first two quarters because I
Mhm.
think that's going to indicate his style, how he's going to be rotating, for the in-season games. And so right now, I mean, it looks good. I like what I see right now for the first two quarters.
Do you think he's going to give Obi more minutes? Because based on his rotation, it seems like he's the rotation because I think Obi has been coming in a little earlier in this preseason game. So you're right. If it's I think you're right. The first couple of quarters is probably going to be a little more representative of what
Hmm.
he's going to do in the regular season. And if this is, if it is a little similar to what he's going to do in the regular season, then hopefully I do think Obi Toppin plays a little more. What do you think he needs to do with like Obi and Julius in terms of the rotations? Do you think, it's I mean, like they can easily do where Obi gets basically 20 minutes a game, where like some games Julius will play 30 minutes and Obi's playing 18. And some games maybe Julius only plays 28 minutes and Obi gets to 20 minutes that game. Like how do you think what do you think the coach does with those two players in terms of rotation and the minutes?
You know what? I really think it has to do. I think he'll play Obi a little bit more than what he did last year, but it's really going to be up to Obi. I really feel like Obi has to force his hand.
Mhm.
If Obi comes out there and he's shooting those UFO 3 pointers, you know, it's going to be on a short leash, And so it's up to him. But if he plays his game
Mhm.
and he's, not missing key assignments on the defensive end and blocking 3-point shots and then leaking out for those type of scores, oh God, he's got to play him. He has no choice, especially in Julius as being Julius. And so I think we would have saw a more effective even Julius last year had his minutes been decreased. And so uh, the good thing is right now with other guys stepping up, the onus is not on Julius, thank God. And so uh, I just think it's just going to boil down to Obi. Going back, just Obi has to step up. He has to continue and show consistency. He shows consistency. Tibbs will have to play him. It's just he has no choice. I mean, and so rebounding, we talked about that. I would love to see him rebound at least 6 to 7 a game. I think that's very feasible for him. If he gets 7 a game, I'm okay with that. I never expect him to have 12 rebounds in a game, unless he's getting put back dunks, off the rim. But, it's just not going to happen. The great thing is, you have Mitch on the court, who's a phenomenal offensive rebounder. And if we can, figure out how to utilize him, and then Jericho Sims will definitely hide a lot of, deficiencies, rebounding deficiencies of Obi. So it's just, this is where coaching comes in, right? You figure out how to utilize what you have, the talent that you have, and that's what makes you a good coach.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a lot of this is on a coach. Even like it, we like let's say RJ and Julius, the efficiency is not great this year as well. I mean, the whole, then you got to get the ball to your more efficient players. Then you have to impress upon like RJ and Jalen Brunson to basically make sure uh, you get the ball to like Mitchell Robinson. You make plays for like Mitchell Robinson, make plays for like Obi Toppin. Those are your best finishers, especially like I've always, we've talked about before. I mean, Obi is not like Obi is the kind of player he can rise above traffic. He can finish through traffic. So it's not like, because he's above the rim kind of player. And so, and also he's just good, right? And so you have to find a way to get him the ball and make plays for Obi. Like I said, he doesn't have to be at the rim either. He just needs to just give him a lane, whether if it's by a pick and roll, whatever it is, just get him a lane if you're a playmaker, and just get him going towards the rim. And you kind of see it a little more. You see it more with like D Rose is the one who's a little better at that, at doing it for Obi, like getting the ball to Obi while Obi's like cutting to the basket. Because once Obi gets in that paint and he's just gonna go up with the balls, like I mean, he's a high percentage finisher. His efficiency is just insane. And so I think it's just what they have to do. I think Jalen, if he plays with Jalen, I think that'll be a good thing. The more he's able to play with Jalen, I think Quickly is still working on being able to get the ball to Obi. Like it's almost like if it's not a lob, or if Obi doesn't have a perfect seal, he's not able to like do the things like find Obi cutting, like let's say into the lane. It's almost like he doesn't give it to Obi. Maybe he feels like that's too high of a risk of a pass, but you just got to get it to him. If Obi is cutting to the basket and there's a lane, it doesn't matter if there's some people in that lane, in the underneath the basket or closer to that. Just get him the ball, because that's going to be a high percentage finish. And so, same thing with Mitchell Robinson. With Mitchell Robinson, a little different. Obviously, he would have to be close to the basket. But when he gets a seal, they just need to get him the ball. You see, I noticed they've been trying to get him the ball these first few games. Like if he posts up and he gets a seal, they've been trying. They're not very good at it still yet, but they've been trying. And so I hope they do. That's what they need to do. You got to get the ball to your two best finishers, and that's honestly that's Obi and Mitchell, especially if you're struggling with efficiency. That's just what they have to do. So if you mix all that in with Jalen Brunson's efficiency, I think the Knicks should be fine. And so it's going to be it is going to be interesting, and it is up to the coach to figure out how he's gonna work these guys in, and how he's gonna use the talent that he has available to them. But you know what? That's I think that's we're almost at the 1 hour mark. Wanted to stop a little early, so. Do you have
Yep.
anything else you wanted to talk about with the Knicks, or any closing?
Yeah, I have one one funny thing here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I never, we never get too tied up in preseason stats, right?
Mhm.
But ironically, if you look on the leaderboard, just for the NBA, steals per game,
Mhm.
uh, Deuce McBride is tied for number 2 per game at
Mhm.
3 steals per game. But he's tied with Kyrie Irving, and here's the third person. This is why. This is why we don't look too much into preseason stats. Kristaps Porzingis is the third person
Oh my God.
with 3 steals a game as well. And so I'm looking forward to that game in Washington. Um, you know, I, Porzingis, is that a home game? I'm not sure. It must be a home game.
You mean I don't. Let me see. I don't think it is. Let me
Yeah,
see.
it's a home game for the Knicks. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a home.
okay. Okay,
Yeah, it's a
that's good.
the Knicks, and so I'm looking forward to the booze.
Hmm.
Be honest, you know, and so and let's see if he gets 3 steals this game.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think he's gonna get 3 steals. That's not the way the Knicks. They just haven't. We haven't been turning over the ball very much, so I don't think that really happens. But one funny thing though was like a few years ago, I wanted to go watch a preseason Knicks game, and I'm not sure what website. It was like one of these Ticketmaster. I think it was. It wasn't like some bootleg website. It was like Ticketmaster or something. And it made it seem like it was a home game. I thought it was a game at MSG. I purchased a ticket, and I'm all excited to go watch this preseason game. The day of the game, I'm like pulling up my ticket online. And actually, I didn't pull it up until I was at work. It was like I was at work. I think it might have been like maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon while I'm at work. I'm checking to, look at the ticket to make sure I have like the tickets and all that stuff. And it says the game is in Washington, D.C. And of
Mm.
course, I live in Jersey. And so I'm like, how the heck did I buy a ticket, in Washington? I'm not sure how it happened. And so, of course, I wasn't able to go to the game. And so it was a wasted ticket. But ever since then, the Wizards, they keep sending me emails every dang year, a few times a
Yeah.
year asking me to buy tickets. And it's like, I'm not a Wizards fan. Stop emailing me. You
Yeah,
got the.
I know the feeling. I've gone to a couple of games when I was living in Virginia. So I would go to the Knicks games, and they have this like concierge with the Wizards, and they just keep reaching out. And it's funny, and that's one of the stadiums that we typically take over, that arena, as as Knicks fans. And it was one of those years where they were actually pretty good. The Wizards were pretty good that year, and matter of fact, Carmelo was still on the team at that time. Porzingis and Carmelo were still on the team, and so uh, the game. I mean, we looked good. First 2 quarters, we looked great. By the third, it started getting away from us. By the fourth, it was just a straight blowout. And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm leaving early." And as I was trying to walk out with my head down, the Wizard fans would just shout out, "Don't leave! Don't leave yet! Where you guys going?"
Oh, that's
So
funny.
yeah, a little taunt from the Wizard fans. So and I never forgot that that moment. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this game, and hopefully they will have their heads down, even though it's preseason.
Yeah.
Um, Now, do you think Tibbs are going to? How long do you think Tibbs are going to play the starters and maybe the official role players on the last preseason game?
I think the last preseason game, I think if he does play the starters, is going to be, or any of the starters, is going to be probably only in the first quarter. Because I think what they're going to try to do the last preseason game, they're going to try to get a good look at, like, a lot of um, the guys that are trying out. And also they're going to, try to give more reps to like the bench guys. So probably I think we should see Obi Toppin probably. I think we should see him. IQ probably starts. So yeah, I think I don't know if he's I don't know. I'm not really sure. He probably shouldn't really play the starters, but he might in the first quarter, and then the bench players might play in the second quarter. I mean, the second unit might play second quarter, and then the rest of the game might just be like the guy, most basically the guys trying out, sprinkled in with like maybe Obi and a couple other guys. So I think that's what they might do. Um, but it's not like they're playing a ton of preseason games either. But I think they might go that route. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay, it'll be interesting.
yeah, it definitely will be. So we'll see what happens. But so yeah, thank you guys for watching. And so if you guys get a chance, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you guys so much. We'll catch you guys in the next one.